The roar of motorcycle engines shattered the quiet afternoon as a gang of bikers sped into a small roadside diner. They laughed loudly, their presence intimidating anyone who dared glance their way. But in the corner of the diner sat two men, calm and composed, dressed casually yet with a quiet authority in their demeanor. What the bikers didn't realize was that these men weren't ordinary travelers. They were soldiers on leave, trained and disciplined to handle the unexpected. The bikers' bravado turned to provocation, testing the patience of the unassuming duo. What started as harmless banter quickly escalated, the tension in the room thickening with each passing moment. Little did the bikers know they were about to learn a lesson in respect and humility, one they'd never forget. Stay tuned to see how it all unfolds. The bikers, confident in their numbers, started making their presence felt. They slammed chairs around, their laughter echoing like a challenge to anyone who might oppose them. One of them, a burly man with a leather jacket covered in patches, locked eyes with the two soldiers and smirked. "What's the matter, fellas? Too quiet for you?" He cheered, his voice dripping with mockery. The soldiers exchanged a calm glance, but said nothing, their posture relaxed yet oddly unshakable. This only seemed to fuel the bikers' need to assert dominance. They started circling the soldiers' table, throwing taunts and nudging chairs. What the bikers didn't know was that these men weren't just trained to fight. They were masters of restraint and strategy. The quiet confidence of the soldiers hinted at something deeper, leaving everyone wondering how this standoff might end. The tension in the diner grew thick as a few other customers nervously shuffled out, sensing trouble brewing. The leader of the bikers leaned in closer, towering over one of the soldiers. "Cat got your tongue," he sneered, slamming his hand on the table. The soldier looked up, calm and composed, his sharp gaze locking onto the biker. "We're just here to enjoy a meal," he said evenly, his voice low but steady. That response only seemed to irritate the biker more. "Oh, you'll enjoy something all right," he growled, as his friends laughed. But beneath the surface, the soldiers were reading every move, observing the dynamics of the group, quietly calculating. Meanwhile, the diner's cook peered nervously from the kitchen, silently pleading with the soldiers to de-escalate. The air seemed charged, as if everyone was waiting for the inevitable spark to set things off. The leader of the bikers slammed his fist on the table again, hard enough to rattle the plates. "Maybe you didn't hear me right," he said, his voice laced with menace. The soldiers remained calm, their composure unshaken, which only seemed to agitate the bikers more. One of the gang members, eager to prove himself, grabbed a glass of water from the table and tipped it over, letting it spill across the soldiers' laps. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the jukebox in the corner. The soldiers exchanged another glance, this time with a flicker of something unreadable in their eyes. The tension was unbearable. Every onlooker was holding their breath, wondering what would happen next. The leader leaned in closer, a smug grin on his face. "What are you gonna do about it?" he challenged. The soldiers slowly stood up, their movements deliberate. The bikers smirked, thinking they had finally broken them. But as the soldiers stood tall, a quiet strength radiated from them, causing even a few of the bikers to hesitate. The moment hung in the air, heavy and electric, as if the entire diner had been frozen in time. The soldiers stood there, motionless for a moment, their calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the chaos brimming around them. The leader of the bikers took a step closer, smirking as if he had already won. But just as he opened his mouth to throw another insult, one of the soldiers reached into his pocket. The bikers flinched, their confidence faltering for the first time. Instead of a weapon, the soldier pulled out a small military badge and placed it firmly on the table. The leader's smirk faded as he stared at it. "What's this supposed to mean?" He scoffed, but his voice carried less certainty now. The soldier's steady reply cut through the tension like a knife. It means you've just picked a fight with the wrong people. At that moment, the diner door swung open, and two more men walked in. They were dressed similarly to the soldiers, carrying the same air of authority and discipline. The bikers exchanged nervous glances as they realized these weren't just ordinary diners. They were a team. The mood shifted entirely, the bikers' earlier bravado cracking under the weight of the unexpected reinforcements. But instead of acting immediately, the soldiers stood silently, letting the bikers squirm, the suspense building towards something inevitable. The leader of the bikers stepped back slightly, his bravado faltering as the weight of the situation became clear. The two newcomers joined the soldiers, their calm expressions mirroring the same unshakable confidence. One of the soldiers, the one who had placed the badge on the table, spoke again, his voice firm yet calm. "You've got two choices: walk out of here quietly, or stay and regret it." For a moment, it seemed like the bikers might still push their luck, but then the leader hesitated. His friends, no longer laughing, shifted uncomfortably. The silence in the diner was broken by a nervous chuckle from one of the bikers. "All right, no need to get dramatic," he muttered, trying to diffuse the tension. The leader nodded reluctantly. "Let's go," he growled, turning toward the door. But just as they began to leave, the soldier's voice rang out once more. "And leave the cash for the damages," he said, motioning to the spilled drinks and broken chairs. The leader froze, his face reddening. For a moment, it looked like he might refuse, but a sharp glance from one of his own men convinced him otherwise. Grumbling under his breath, he threw a handful of bills onto the counter before storming out with his gang. As the bikers' engines roared to life outside, the soldiers sat back down, their calm composure never breaking. The diner staff, who had been watching in stunned silence, erupted into applause, grateful for how the situation had been handled. One of the soldiers looked up, a faint smile on his face, and said to the cook, "We'll take that pie now." Just when the tension seemed fully dissolved, the cook laughed nervously and replied, "Good thing you didn't need backup. There's a whole convoy parked just outside." The soldiers exchanged a knowing glance, but said nothing, leaving the cook and everyone else wondering just how much they had underestimated the men sitting before them. As the bikers roared away, the tension in the diner finally eased. The soldiers quietly finished their meal, nodding politely to the cook and the few remaining patrons who still seemed awestruck by what had just unfolded. The leader of the group placed a generous tip on the counter and said with a hint of humor, "Sorry for the mess." The cook chuckled nervously but managed a sincere, "Thank you for everything." Outside, the soldiers walked past the parked convoy the cook had mentioned. A few men leaned against the vehicles, exchanging casual nods with the group as they passed. No words were needed, just a silent acknowledgement of their unshakable bond. As they climbed into their truck and drove off, the calm of the afternoon returned. For everyone in that diner, it was a day they'd never forget, a reminder that true strength lies in restraint, respect, and knowing when to stand your ground.